Salvē, amici, and welcome. Today we are in John chapter 4, taking a look at verse 5, and that's all we're going to make it through today, so it should be pretty quick, except probably not because it's me. Here's a rubric, everything that we're looking for. Let's go ahead and get started. Venit ergo in civitatem Samariae, quae dicitur sicar iuxta praedium quod dedit Jacob Iosef filio suo. Here we have venit with it, so that's going to be a third singular, and it's either present or perfect, so we have to take a look at our Greek to figure out which of the two it is. And as I pull up Greek page right here, we have present tense, so that's how we're going to treat in Latin, and it is active and indicative. In civitate, we don't have an obvious subject, so it's probably going to be our previous one, so Jesus. Therefore, Jesus comes in prepositional phrase with the accusative. That's the wrong case to still be part of it. Singular and civitas, civitatem. Long A right there, so feminine. Into, and I think the last time that we ran into this, I was a little bit confused about why Jerome chose it, because normally this means like citizenship. But we've seen him before use it as just the word for the town or the city. Or I guess the state is another option. So I'm not going to treat it as anything particularly weird. If we run into it again, just understand it does mean normally citizenship, but Jerome uses it as state or town. Samariae, alpha AE right there. So it could be dative, but we don't have need for a dative right here, so genitive makes more sense. So that's how I'm going to treat it. Of Samaria rather than to Samaria. He's not coming into town for Samaria. He's coming into town of Samaria. Quae, so from qui, quae, quod. UOD. So that's could be a feminine singular, nominative plural, or accusative plural. So take a look at our verb. We've got tour right there. So that's going to be a passive, third singular, present, passive, indicative. So nominative singular makes the most sense, and feminine, referring to probably the city, town, which, rather than Samaria, is called Sychar. That's an indeclinable word from a different language, probably Aramaic. Iuxta right here, this is I want to say it's an adverb, or it could be a word acting as a preposition. Taking a look ahead, praedium, we've got right there. That's going to be accusative. That I is not telling us a genitive plural. It is actually accusative. This is praedium, praedii, I think. Yeah, so that means that if iuxta is acting as a preposition, then it's taking accusative in its case. And this means near or nearby. Praedium, right there, accusative, singular, and neuter. And this means farm or landed estate. Yes, estate. Prepositional phrase ends right there. Quod, qui, quae, quod again, neuter. Dedit, so this is going to be accusative, singular, as the object of dedit, which, reduplication right there, it is our ending. Reduplication is not normal in Latin, except for curo, curare, cucuri, and do, dare, dedit, there. I can't speak today. Third singular, perfect tense because it's from the third principal part, is active and indicative. Jacob is not declinable. Note also that Joseph is not declinable, but since they appear right next to each other, the first one is probably the subject. And as we see, filio suo, who's whose son? Well, we know that Joseph, if you know your Old Testament, which catechumens way back in the day probably would not have known until they'd been properly trained. If John was being used as a catechetical document, coming to this, they probably would have been the Jewish teachers, the pastors would have been telling the catechumens about the story of Joseph, or about the story of the inheritance at least, which is what this has to do with. And then they would know that Jacob is the father of Joseph, so Jacob makes most sense as the subject. And Joseph, as filio suo tells us, dative, singular, masculine, indirect object. And there we have verse 5. Thank you very much for joining me. Let's take a look at it in its own context, and then from verse 1. Therefore Jesus comes into town of Samaria, which is called Sychar, nearby farm or landed estate which Jacob gave to Joseph, his own son. From verse 1. As therefore Jesus perceived that Pharisees heard that Jesus makes more disciples and baptizes than John, although Jesus was not baptizing but his disciples, he left behind Jews and went away again into Galilee. It was necessary for him to go across through Samaria. Therefore Jesus comes into town of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near farm which Jacob gave to Joseph, his own son. There we have it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope you have a very good day. Salvē.
What? You're still awake? Why are you still here then? You should be reading a book. Or if not reading, you should watch one of these other videos. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. See you next week.